The Great Pyramids of Giza, without doubt the most mysterious, fascinating buildings on Earth. This fascinating, mysterious infrastructure has baffled archaeologists, scholars, historians, scientists alike to how in fact they were built, why they were built and who built them. With all the evidence over the centuries into the construction of the pyramids, there has never really been a true logical conclusion to who built them. Without doubt, these are monuments that are shrouded in mystery and shrouded in conspiracy to who was the architects behind these colossal, mysterious buildings. People have said aliens and extraterrestrials must have built the pyramids, because with the technology we have today in the 21st century, could not have built the pyramids.
We would struggle to make the pyramids today. But you have to realize there's 2,300,000 stones in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And some of them are cut from a quarry that's hundreds of miles away. And these are massive, massive stones that were cut with such precision. In some of the areas where you look at the stones, you can't even get a razor blade in between those rocks. And these are massive stones. The amount of calculations that are involved and the amount of precision that has to be involved. This design, you can't have any errors.
So something far more advanced than human beings, something with more extreme capabilities and wisdom and knowledge and in fact supernatural ability, must have been the architects behind the pyramids. I used to believe that. Now I'm a Christian, I dismiss that. I don't believe in aliens and extraterrestrials did build the pyramids. And people say the Israelites built the pyramids. We know the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. But there has never really been any evidence of any Jewish presence there. And we know the Bible is pretty clear about the time the Israelites spent in Egypt. And when the Israelites entered Egypt, the Bible says they went to Goshen. And when they became enslaved in Egypt by a cruel pharaoh, they were building them with muds and bricks. And pyramids were not built with mud and bricks. And as well as that, the accurate precision that has gone into the pyramids and the way that the pyramids as well is locked into the cardinal dimensions. I just can't see the Israelites building the pyramids. I can't see slave labour being behind the construction of the pyramids. If you really think about it, this was like skill, precision, care and craftsmanship that went into these pyramids. And I think with even all the human slave labour you could put on this project, I just don't think human slave labour could pull this off. Then you look at the Nephilim, the giants of men, who, I'm not going to keep you in suspense, I believe the Nephilim, the giants of men, which the Bible speaks about in the Old Testament, I believe they were the architects behind the pyramids. I believe that their capabilities were far more greater than ours, and they existed thousands of years ago. I mean, the pyramids are thousands of years before Christ. I believe the pyramids were even built before Noah's Ark. So if that is the case, then the Nephilim would have been around. The Nephilim as well, the Bible talks about, are mighty men of renown, and as fact is, fallen angels came down to this world, and fallen angels saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and started to get intimate with the daughters of men, and the offspring came, the Nephilim. And these beings would have inherited divine wisdom and had far more advanced capabilities than humans. And I believe if you look at certain infrastructures around the world, I believe this is evidence that there was a lost civilization among us that had greater capabilities than human beings, that were far more advanced, had divine wisdom, and could do things that human beings could just not. And I look at the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, and I believe that they pulled it off because the enormous blocks, I mean the average block in a pyramid weighs 2.5 tons. But there has been blocks over 50 tons that have been lifted up 30 feet. Now, yes, people will say, well, there could be ramps used with slaves. But no, I believe this was done by something far more advanced than us, these pyramids. That was the Nephilim. Definitely, I believe. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. But you look at the ancient Egyptians, did they build the pyramids? Human slave labour, that has never been proven. But if you look at it as well, that archaeologists, scholars, scientists who have investigated the pyramids for centuries, if you look at this naturally, it's just not possible. I believe it was something supernatural. I believe it was something that was far greater, far bigger, far more advanced. And I believe they're wiped out, obviously, by God. We know the Bible talks about these Nephilim that were wiped out by the great flood. Because of their evilness, their wickedness, God had enough and pressed the reset button, and an apocalyptic event happened, and these giants of men got wiped out by the Almighty God. And I think that, as again, these Nephilim were behind the construction of the pyramids. Have the pyramids so in line with the cardinal points of north, east, south and west, and I mean that intelligence itself is speaking volumes that it was something far more greater than humans. As well as that, where the pyramids was actually located in the desert in Egypt, that it was literally aligning with true north. And as well as said to believe that the mathematics that was put into the pyramids, and that the information of this world that was encoded into the pyramids, it's literally mind-blowing. And for them to have that wisdom and intellect came from something far greater than humans. And I believe that it was the Nephilim that built the pyramids. Why did they build the pyramids? I don't know. That's a question I do not know. It is believed that the pyramids were built for tombs for pharaohs. After pharaohs die, they go to the tomb and they go journey off into the afterlife. But to build this gigantic monumental infrastructure just for tombs, and I know pharaohs were treated like gods in ancient Egypt. They did a very unique send-off, but still I just don't see it's possible to say that it was just built for tombs for pharaohs. I don't believe that. But then you look at one of the greatest inventors this world has ever seen, Nikola Tesla, an absolute genius. He was fascinated by the pyramids, and he believed that the pyramids served a far greater, higher purpose, that there was energy transmitters, and the location of the pyramids as well transmitted some sort of energy. And Nikola Tesla kind of tried to do a replication of an energy transmitter in America. That was actually destroyed by the Americans because they thought he was actually using that for the Germans to spy on him. This transmitter that he built, but that was his view on the pyramids, that it was energy. That could be true. And then as well, there was a guy called Ben Carson who claimed that the pyramids were built by Joseph in the Old Testament to store grain, because Egypt was coming into a great famine, and Joseph in the Old Testament, who was the son of Jacob, was sold off into slavery. Now Ben Carson claimed this.
My own personal theory is that Joseph built the pyramids in order to store grain. It would have to be something awfully big. When you stop and think about it, I don't think it would just disappear over the course of time to store that much grain.
Okay, so as I pointed out, Maeve, that was 1998, but he was asked about this recently.
It's still my belief, yes.
Now, I just talk a bit about Ben Carson. Ben Carson was an American government official, an author as well. And his claims was that Joseph and the Israelites built the pyramids to store grain for a time of famine. But I don't believe so. I think, again, just store grain, to have pyramids so aligned with the stars and to be so locked into the cardinal dimensions of north, east, south and west just to store grain. I don't believe that either. So what were they built for? That is a big mystery. But again, I do believe that the giants of men, the Nephilim, were the architects behind these pyramids. I believe they built them. With the sophisticated technology we have in the 21st century, still can't build the pyramids. So I believe the intellect and the wisdom, it still can't build the pyramids. And if you go back to ancient times, the old Egyptians have the tools to pull off these pyramids. No. So again, I believe the pyramids were done by the giants of men, the Nephilim that God destroyed for their wickedness, that they built the pyramids. That's my opinion. Don't believe it was aliens. Don't believe in aliens. Don't believe it was the Israelites or the Egyptians. I believe it was the giants of man, the Nephilim, that built those pyramids. That's my opinion. I'm going to end up there. If you have a view or opinion who built the pyramids, please leave your comment on the comment section below. Would really appreciate your opinion. And again, I did hope you enjoyed this video, and I do hope to see you soon. So till then, be blessed.